The stars looked different from the viewport of the Horizon Seeker. Captain Hannah Park stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching as the massive alien station grew larger against the backdrop of unfamiliar constellations. After traveling for 3 months through deep space, humanity's first official diplomatic mission was about to meet the Celestial Concord. "Nervous?" asked Dr. June Kim, stepping beside her. As Earth's chosen ambassador, he carried the hopes of 8 billion humans on his shoulders. Hannah straightened her uniform. "Just ready to do my job, sir." In truth, she felt a flutter of both excitement and fear in her stomach. Humans had been spacefaring for barely 40 years. The conquered species had been crossing the stars for thousands. The ship's communication system crackled. "Human vessel," came a voice that sounded like stones grinding together. "Follow approach vector. Deviation will result in defensive measures." June nodded to the pilot. "Acknowledge and comply." As they drew closer, the true scale of the station became clear. It was not simply large, it was colossal, a spinning wheel of metal and light that could have housed an entire Earth city within its outer ring. "It's old," Hannah said, pointing to sections that looked weathered and ancient compared to the gleaming newer additions. "Parts of that structure must be thousands of years old." June smiled tightly. "Let's hope they've learned some manners in that time." The human delegation consisted of 12 people: diplomats, scientists, and security personnel. Hannah led the security team, though she had been told repeatedly that her role was ceremonial. Humans were newcomers, after all. They were here to listen and learn, not to make demands. When the airlock doors opened with a hiss, they were met by a group of aliens. Standing tallest among them were the Vexari, nearly 7 feet tall with iridescent scaled skin and 4 arms. Their eyes, 3 on each side of their elongated heads, blinked in an unsettling rhythm. "The human delegation arrives at last," said the lead Vexari. Its voice translator produced perfect English, but the tone carried unmistakable amusement. "I am Senior Envoy Kelth. You will follow. No welcome, no pleasantries, just an order." June stepped forward with a practiced smile. "Senior Envoy, we bring greetings from Earth. We are honored to—" "Save your primitive customs," Kelth interrupted. "The Conquered has protocols. You will learn them." Hannah felt her face grow hot with embarrassment for June, but the ambassador maintained his composure. As they followed the aliens through the massive corridors, she noticed the other conquered species, watching them. Some with curiosity, others with what looked like pity. The station was a marvel of technology and art combined. Gravity shifted subtly between sections. Light came from no visible sources. And everywhere there were symbols, etched into walls, glowing on control panels, flowing like water across information displays. But it was the older sections that caught Hannah's eye. Here, the symbols were different, more angular, more complex. They reminded her of something she had seen before, though she couldn't place it. "Your quarters," announced Kelth, stopping before a doorway. "You will rest. Tomorrow the diplomatic assessment begins." "Assessment?" June asked. "We were expecting negotiations for—" "Negotiations?" The alien made a sound like breaking glass, which the humans would later learn was laughter. "You misunderstand your position, Ambassador Kim. You are not here to negotiate. You are here to be evaluated. The Conquered will determine if humans are worth any consideration at all." With that, the delegation was left alone in what amounted to a glorified waiting room with attached sleeping quarters. "Well," said Minasong, "their xenoanthropologist, that was humiliating." June sighed and loosened his collar. "It's just posturing. Every first contact in history has involved some display of dominance." "They're testing us," Tae Woo Lee added. The linguist had been silent during the encounter, his eyes darting between the aliens and the symbols on the walls. "Seeing how we react to being treated as inferiors." Hannah wasn't listening. She had moved to a window overlooking the central hub of the station. From here, she could see beings of all shapes and sizes moving with purpose. 7 main species made up the Concord. According to their briefing, the Vexari were the most powerful, but there were others. The cloud-like Ire, the insectoid Chillet, the massive aquatic Dorani, and 3 more races with names she couldn't pronounce. "Captain Park," called June. "We need to prepare for tomorrow." "Yes, sir?" She turned away from the window, but not before noticing a sealed doorway far below. It was covered in those same ancient symbols that nagged at her memory. Unlike the rest of the busy station, no one approached that door. The next day was even worse than their welcome. The human delegation was separated and questioned for hours. The questions weren't just probing, they were belittling. "How does your species overcome its obvious cognitive limitations?" asked one Shillet scientist to Mina. "At what point did humans realize that killing each other was counterproductive?" A Vexari diplomat asked June with mock innocence. By evening, when they regrouped, morale was low. "They asked me if humans had discovered that the universe wasn't flat yet," Taewoo said, his voice tight with anger. "When I told them we'd known that for centuries, they acted surprised." Hana had been treated to similar condescension. The Vexari military liaison had laughed when she described Earth's defense systems. "We need to show them we deserve respect," Dae-hyun Cho, their defense specialist, argued. "We're not children." "No," June said firmly. "We play their game. For now." That night, unable to sleep, Hana slipped out of their quarters. She told herself she was just exploring, but her feet led her toward that mysterious door she had seen from the window. The night cycle of the station meant fewer beings in the corridors. Using her military training, Hana avoided the occasional patrol. It took her nearly an hour to find the right level and section. When she finally stood before the ancient door, she caught her breath. The symbols covering its surface were undeniably similar to those found in Earth's oldest archaeological sites. The pre-cuneiform marks of Göbekli Tepe, the proto-writing of the Indus Valley. She took out her personal data device and began recording, capturing as many of the symbols as she could. Her heart raced as she worked. These weren't just similar to Earth's ancient writings. Some were identical. "Human," came a voice behind her. "This area is restricted." Hana turned slowly to face a Durrani security officer, its massive amphibian body blocking her escape route. "I was lost," she lied smoothly. The Durrani's large eyes narrowed. "Return to your delegation immediately." As she walked away, Hana clutched her device. She needed to show these images to Taewoo, because if she was right, if these symbols truly matched Earth's oldest writing, then humanity's place in the galaxy might be very different than the Concord believed. Something ancient connected them, all. And somehow humans remembered what the others had forgotten. "Are you sure about this?" Tae-Woo Lee stared at the images on Hana's device, his eyes wide with disbelief. It was early morning by the station's cycle. Hana had waited until the others were asleep before showing Tae-Woo what she had discovered. "I'm not an expert," Hana said. "That's why I'm showing you." Tae-Woo zoomed in on several symbols. "This one appears in the Indus Valley script, and this is almost identical to markings found at Göbekli Tepe. But this is impossible." "Why?" "Because these sites are from different time periods, different parts of Earth. They shouldn't share a writing system." Tae-Woo ran his fingers through his hair. Unless what? Unless there was an even older language, a proto-language that came before all known human writing. His voice dropped to a whisper. "A language that wasn't originally ours." A soft chime interrupted them, the morning alarm. Soon the rest of the delegation would be awake. "Keep this between us for now," Hana said. "I need to send these images to Earth for analysis." "Use my secure channel," Tae-Woo said. "It has priority routing through the communication array they let us set up." Later that morning, the human delegation gathered for their second day of what the Concord called integration protocols, but what felt more like a series of tests designed to highlight human inadequacy. Dr. Jun Kim looked tired. His first day of diplomatic talks had been frustrating. "They offered us protected species status," he told the group, his voice tight with controlled anger, "like we're some endangered animal in need of conservation." "That's insulting," said Mina, the xenoanthropologist. "It's worse than that," Dae-hyun added. "It would give them the right to limit our expansion, to control our technology development, To monitor our communications. June nodded. I rejected it, of course, but their alternative offer wasn't much better. While they discussed strategy, Hana noticed Tae-woo working quietly on his device. She knew he was analyzing the symbols she'd found, comparing them to his database of Earth's ancient writings. Their morning meeting was interrupted by the arrival of Senior Envoy Kelth and several other Concord representatives. The Diplomatic Council will see you now, Kelth announced. Try not to embarrass yourselves. The council chamber was a vast circular room. 7 massive chairs, thrones really, dominated a raised platform. Below them was a simple standing area where the humans were directed to wait. The message was clear. The Concord sat in judgment. Humans stood as supplicants. Representatives from each of the 7 major Concord species filed in and took their seats. The Vexari counselor, an ancient-looking being named High Executor Ralks, spoke first. Humans, Ralks said, voice booming through translator devices. You have been granted a rare opportunity. Few primitive species receive direct Concord attention. June stepped forward with a diplomatic smile. We appreciate the Concord's interest in Earth. However, we seek a relationship of mutual respect and mutual, interrupted the Durrani counselor with a sound like bubbling water. What could Earth possibly offer the Concord? Perhaps entertainment, suggested a wispy Ere. Human art forms have a certain crude charm. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Hana felt her face grow hot with embarrassment and anger. June maintained his composure. Earth has unique perspectives, new approaches to problems, diverse cultures we have studied 1,000 worlds with diverse cultures, Ralk said dismissively. All eventually realized the superiority of Concord guidance. The meeting continued this way for hours. Every human suggestion was met with condescension. Every human achievement was diminished as primitive or derivative. During a brief recess, Hana noticed something interesting. The counselors were escorted through a side door marked with the same ancient symbols she had seen before. When it opened, she glimpsed a long corridor leading to what might be the mysterious sealed chamber. More importantly, she noticed the Vexari counselor's reaction upon passing the symbols. Ralk seemed to flinch, turning away as if the sight was uncomfortable. When her device vibrated silently in her pocket, Hana stepped away from the group to check it. Tae-woo had sent her a message. Breakthrough. Meet after dinner. That evening, while most of the delegation rested in their quarters, Hana slipped away to meet Tae-woo in a small observation room they had discovered. I sent the images to Earth, Tae-woo said, his eyes bright with excitement, to Professor Han at Seoul University. He's been studying what he calls the mother tongue for decades. The mother tongue? A theoretical first human language. Most linguists dismissed his work as fringe science. Tae-woo's hands trembled slightly as he pulled up new images on his device. But look at this. The screen showed a comparison chart. On one side were the station's ancient symbols, on the other, carvings from Earth's oldest archaeological sites. The match rate is over 70%, Tae-woo said. That's beyond coincidence. These aren't just similar writing systems. They're the same language. Hana felt a chill run down her spine. How is that possible? Humans and these aliens evolved on different planets light years apart. Unless we didn't evolve separately. Tae-woo lowered his voice even though they were alone. Professor Han thinks this language belongs to a precursor civilization. A species that might have influenced evolution across multiple worlds. You mean like ancient aliens? Hana couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. I know how it sounds, but the evidence. He pulled up another image, this one from a cave painting in Australia estimated to be 45,000 years old. The symbols around the figures matched those on the station perfectly. Professor Han is working on a translation key based on his previous research. He thinks he can decode some of these symbols within days. Hana sat back trying to process the implications. Does anyone else know about this? Not yet. I wanted to be sure before telling Dr. Kim. Good, keep it that way. Hana stood up. Meanwhile, I need to get another look at that sealed chamber. That's too risky. Taewoo warned. If they catch you, they won't. Hana checked the time. The night cycle has begun. Security will be minimal. Using the station maps they had been provided and her military training, Hana navigated the quieter corridors. Twice she had to duck into alcoves to avoid Jilit's security patrols. When she finally reached the mysterious door again, she noticed something she had missed before. At the center of the door, at about chest height, was a panel of symbols arranged in a circular pattern. Hana took images from every angle, then carefully pressed her hand against the panel. Nothing happened. Human, came a soft voice behind her. You should not be here. Hana spun around expecting guards, but instead found a small eyrie floating nearby. Unlike the arrogant counselor, this one's cloud-like body pulsed with gentle blues and greens. I was just curious about the ancestor door, the eyrie finished. As you should be. It calls to your kind. Hana tensed, ready to run. What do you mean? The Vexari don't want you to know, the alien continued. They can't hear it anymore. None of us can. But you might. Hear what? The voice of creation. The eyrie drifted closer. I am Neil. I study what little remains of our shared past. The Vexari forbid such research, but some of us remember the old stories. Stories about what? About the Shapers who came before, who seeded life across the stars. Neil's body rippled with what might have been emotion. The Vexari rose first, among the 7 races. They claimed the Shaper legacy as their own and buried much of the truth. Hana's mind raced. This aligned perfectly with Taewoo's theory. Why are you telling me this? Because the humans remember, Neil said simply. When your kind first spoke through our communication systems, some of us recognized echoes of the old. Speech in your words, the Vexari fear this. A distant sound made them both turn, voices approaching. Go, Neil urged. But return when you can speak the words of opening. Hana slipped away just as a Vexari security team rounded the corner. As she made her way back to the human quarters, her mind buzzed with questions. The next morning, she shared everything with Taewoo, her encounter with Neil, the panel on the door, the suggestion that humans somehow remembered what the conquered species had forgotten. We need that translation key, she said. Taewoo nodded, his expression serious. Professor Han sent the first version this morning. It's rough, but it might be enough to try. Tonight, then, Hana decided. Tonight we find out what's behind that. Toter. Meanwhile, in the daily council meeting, Dr. Kim was fighting a losing diplomatic battle, unaware that Captain Park and Taewoo might have discovered the key to humanity's place among the stars. The night cycle on the station brought dimmed lights and reduced activity. Hana and Taewoo moved quietly through the corridors, avoiding the main pathways where security might spot them. Are you sure about this translation? Hana whispered as they approached the ancient door. Taewoo clutched his device nervously. Professor Han is confident about the basic sounds. The meaning is harder. These symbols are older than anything we've studied on Earth. When they reached the door, Hana checked the surrounding area. No sign of patrols. No sign of Neil, the friendly Airy either. How does this work? She asked, studying the circular panel of symbols. According to Professor Han, these aren't just written symbols. They were meant to be spoken. Taewoo pointed to markings that formed a sequence. The Shapers apparently used sound as a key, speech patterns that activated their technology. So I just talked to the door? Try these words. Taewoo showed her the phonetic translation on his screen. The pronunciation might be rough, but focus on the rhythm and tones. Hana leaned close to the panel and spoke the words slowly. The sounds felt strange in her mouth, yet somehow familiar, like remembering a song from early childhood. Nothing happened. Let me try again. She spoke the words once more, this time letting her voice rise and fall with the natural pattern that seemed to flow through the symbols. The panel lit up with a soft blue glow. The symbols began to shift and change, rearranging themselves into new patterns. It's working, Taewoo whispered, eyes wide. A low humming sound filled the air. The massive door, which had stood sealed for unknown centuries, began to slide open. A rush of stale air flowed out from the darkness beyond. "We should get Dr. Kim," Tae-woo said, suddenly hesitant. Hana shook her head. "No time. Security could come any minute." She took a small light from her pocket. "Stay close." They stepped through the doorway into darkness. Their lights revealed a long corridor lined with more symbols. The walls seemed to be made of a material unlike the rest of the station, darker, smoother, with a faint iridescent quality. "This architecture is different," Tae-woo noted. "Older." The corridor opened into a vast circular chamber. As they entered, lights began to activate automatically, revealing the true scale of the space. It was enormous, a domed room at least 100 meters across. The ceiling arched high above them, covered in swirling patterns of the same ancient script. But what took their breath away were the tall crystalline structures that filled the room, dozens of them, each taller than a person, arranged in concentric circles. "What are they?" Hana asked, approaching the nearest crystal. "I think..." Tae-woo walked slowly around one of the structures. "I think they're data storage, like a library." Hana touched the surface of the nearest crystal. It was cool to the touch and seemed to glow faintly from within. As her fingers made contact, the glow intensified. Patterns of light began to flow through the crystal. "Tae-woo, look at this." The linguist hurried over. As both humans stood before the crystal, an image formed in the air above it. A hologram of swirling stars and planets. "It's responding to our presence," Tae-woo said. More symbols appeared around the hologram. "Can you translate any of this?" Before he could answer, a sound made them both turn. The door to the chamber was opening again. They ducked behind one of the larger crystals, expecting conquered security. Instead, Neil the Eri floated into the room, its cloud-like body pulsing with excited colors. "You did it," Neil said, drifting toward them. "You opened the ancestor door." "What is this place?" Hana asked, stepping out from hiding. "The repository of Shaper knowledge." Neil's voice was filled with awe. "Lost to us for 20 generations. None could speak the words of opening." "Why not?" Tae-woo asked. "If these symbols exist all over the station, why couldn't your people decipher them?" "The ability was lost," Neil explained. "Or rather taken from us." The Eri moved to the center of the room where a larger crystal structure stood. The 7 races of the conquered once knew the speech of creation. But the Vexari, first to rise, to space, feared sharing power. Over centuries, they altered historical records. They changed educational practices. They removed certain sounds from our languages. They deliberately made you forget? Hana was shocked. Not in a single generation, so slowly most never noticed. Neil's body darkened with what might have been sadness. By the time my ancestors realized what was happening, the knowledge was already fading. Tae-woo approached another crystal, studying its surface. But why did humans retain this connection? We evolved separately on Earth. Did you? Neil asked. Simply. The Shapers seeded life on many worlds. The patterns they created echo through all their children. Wait. Hana pointed to the hologram still floating above the first crystal. Is that a map of Shaper worlds? Neil moved closer, colors shifting rapidly. More than a map. It shows their journey, the path of seeding. The Eri pointed to one small spiral arm. Your Earth is there. One of the last worlds they reached before. Before what? Tae-woo asked. Before they vanished. No one knows why. Neil floated up to better view the map. But humans were among their final creations. Perhaps they left something special in your design. Hana walked among the crystals, each, one lighting up as she passed. Can we access the information stored here? With the speech, yes. But I cannot teach you more than the few words I remember. We must. Neil stopped suddenly, body contracting into a tight ball. Security is coming. The energy surge from activating the repository was detected. We need to warn Dr. Kim, Hana said urgently. If the Vexari realize what we've found, too late, came a harsh voice from the doorway. 3 Vexari guards stood there, weapons raised. Behind them was Senior Envoy Kelth, his scales darkened with rage. Humans in the forbidden chamber, Kelth hissed. With a heretic Airy, High Executor Raux will be pleased to have evidence of your treachery. This isn't treachery, Taewoo protested. This knowledge belongs to all the Shaper's children, including humans. Silence, Kelth signaled to the guards. Take them. The Airy too. Hana stepped forward. You've been lying to your own people, hiding their true heritage. For their own good, Kelth replied coldly. The Shapers are gone. The Vexari guide the lesser races now. As the guards approached, Hana made a quick decision. She touched the central crystal and spoke the words Taewoo had taught her. The crystal flared with brilliant light, momentarily blinding everyone in the room. In the confusion, Hana grabbed Taewoo's arm. Run! Find June! They sprinted past the disoriented guards with Neil flowing swiftly behind them. But in the corridor outside, more security waited. Despite Hana's military training, they were quickly overwhelmed. The last thing she saw before, a stun weapon sent her into darkness, was Taewoo being dragged away, still clutching his precious device with the translation key. Hana woke in a small cell. Her head throbbed, and her uniform had been replaced with a plain gray jumpsuit. Through a transparent wall, she could see other cells. Taewoo was in one, sitting with his head in his hands. Neil was contained in some kind of energy field in another. There was no sign of the rest of the human delegation. Hours passed before the cell door finally opened. A Dorani guard entered, its amphibian body looming over her. The council demands your presence, it gurgled through its translator. Hana was led to a smaller version of the council chamber. This one felt more like a courtroom. Dr. Kim was already there, his face tight with anger and concern. Captain Park, he said when he saw her. Are you all right? I'm fine, sir. She looked around. Where's the rest of our team? Confined to quarters. The Concord is calling this a security incident. High Executor Raux entered with Senior Envoy Kelth and several other officials. The ancient Vexari's eyes fixed on Hana with cold hatred. Captain Park of Earth. Raux's voice boomed through the chamber. You stand accused of trespassing in a restricted area, interfering with conquered historical artifacts, and conspiring with known dissidents. She was exploring your history, Dr. Kim argued. There's no law against that. There are many laws protecting Concord security, Ambassador. Raux turned to face him. Your delegation was warned. The ancestor chambers are forbidden to all but authorized researchers. Why? Hana asked boldly. Because you don't want anyone to know the truth? That the Shapers meant their knowledge to be shared by all their created species? Murmurs ran through the assembled aliens. Raux's scales darkened with rage. You know nothing of the Shapers or their intentions, the High Executor snapped. Your primitive species was barely forming words when the Concord was already reaching for the stars. And yet, Hana said quietly, we can still speak their language. The words hung in the air. Even Raux seemed momentarily at a loss. Dr. Kim stepped forward. High Executor, I formally protest the treatment of my officers. If Captain Park has violated any specific regulations, we request to see them in writing. Your protests are noted, Ambassador, but this goes beyond regulations. Raux gestured to Kelth. The human linguist's device has been confiscated. It contains unauthorized translations of sacred texts. Sacred to whom? Hana challenged. The Shapers or the Vexari? Enough, Raux thundered. The humans will remain in custody while the council determines appropriate sanctions. This audience is ended. As guards moved to take them away, Dr. Kim leaned close to Hana. What did you find? In there, he whispered. 3 days passed in the holding cells. Hana marked time by the dimming and brightening of the lights. They were allowed no visitors, no communication with the outside. Even Dr. Kim had been taken to separate quarters after their appearance before Raux. On the morning of the 4th day, The transparent wall of her cell suddenly turned opaque. When it cleared again, Tae-woo was standing in her cell, looking tired but excited. "How did you get in here?" Hana asked, jumping to her feet. "Not me," Tae-woo said. "Look." The door slid open to reveal Neil floating outside. Next to the area was a small shillet, its insect-like body moving with nervous energy. "Quickly," Neil said. "We have little time." Hana followed them into the corridor. "What's happening?" "Revolution, perhaps," the shillet replied, mandibles clicking. "Or execution. Depends who wins." It turned to Hana. "I am Zikta. I speak for those who remember the old ways." They hurried through back corridors, avoiding the main pathways. Zikta led them to a small room filled with communication equipment. "Where's Dr. Kim?" Hana asked. "And the rest of our delegation?" "Your ambassador is being held separately," Neil explained. "The others are confined to your quarters under guard." "The Vexari claim you came to steal Concord technology," Zikta added. "Many believe them. But not everyone," Tae-woo guessed. Neil's body pulsed with what might have been agreement. The news of humans speaking the ancestor tongue has spread, despite Vexari efforts to silence it. "We need to contact Earth," Hana said. "Warn them what's happening." "Already done." Zikta tapped a control panel with one segmented limb. "Your ship received transmission 2 cycles ago, but help will come too late if the Vexari proceed with their plan." "What plan?" "They claim humans are a threat to Concord security. High Executor Ralix has called for a quarantine of your solar system. No travel in or out." Hana felt cold fear grip her stomach. "They would isolate Earth? Cut us off from the rest of the galaxy?" "It is more than that," Neil said gravely. "A quarantine would allow them to place weapon platforms around your star system. For your protection, they will say. But really to keep us contained," Tae-woo understood. "Or worse." Zikta's antennae twitched nervously. "The vote happens today. Many council members are undecided. They fear the Vexari but are intrigued by what you represent." "Which is what, exactly?" Hana asked. "Hope," Neil replied simply. "Hope that the Shaper legacy is not lost forever." The communication panel suddenly lit up. A message scrolled across in the Concord's common language, which Tae-woo had learned to read. "It's from Professor Han," he said excitedly. "Earth received our data about the repository. He's been working non-stop on the translation key." Tae-woo quickly accessed the incoming file. "This is incredible. He's mapped nearly 60% of the Shaper language. With this, we could access much more of the repository data." "If we can get back in," Hana pointed out. "We can," Zikta clicked decisively. "But first, we must stop the quarantine vote." Bito, Shillet explained their plan. While the council was in session, they would access the station's communication system. With the improved translation key, they could send a message in the Shaper language to all parts of the station simultaneously. "The impact of hearing the ancestor tongue again after so many generations will be profound," Neil predicted, "even for those who claim not to believe the old stories." "But we need your help, Captain Park," Zikta added. "Your human voice can pronounce sounds our species no longer can." Hana nodded. "What about Dr. Kim?" "We need to coordinate with him." "I will attempt to reach him," Neil offered. "His guards are Durrani. My people have ways of communicating with them that the Vexari cannot detect." While Neil went to find Dr. Kim, Zikta led Hana and Tae-woo through maintenance tunnels to a central communication hub. The Gillet used access codes to enter a small control room filled with equipment. "Once a cycle, all station announcements are made from here," Zikta explained. "In 10 minutes, the system will activate for routine status updates." Tae-woo worked, quickly, studying the new translation key from Earth. "This section here," he pointed to his screen, "Professor Han believes it's a greeting. A formal introduction of one Shaper to another." "Perfect," Hana said. "Simple but meaningful." They prepared the message while Zikta monitored the corridor outside. From another terminal, they could see a feed of the council chamber, where representatives from all 7 Concord species had gathered. Dr. Kim stood before them, apparently making Earth's case against the quarantine. He's buying us time, Hana realized. When the moment came, Zikta signaled. Taewoo connected their device to the station's system. Hana took a deep breath and began to speak the ancient words into the recorder. Eshana telvorakim shell. Konai. Viretum solus. The words felt strange yet natural in her mouth, as if some deep part of her mind recognized them. Zikta activated the broadcast. Throughout the massive station, Hana's voice echoed in the language of the Shapers. The effect was immediate and dramatic. On the monitor showing the council chamber, they could see aliens of all species freezing in place. Some clutched their heads as if in pain. Others swayed as though hearing beautiful music. High Executor Ralix leapt to his feet, all 4 arms raised in fury. "Stop this transmission!" he roared, but no one moved to obey. Dr. Kim stood watching in amazement as the council members seemed transfixed by the sound of the Shaper language. "It's working," Taewoo whispered. Zikta's antennae suddenly stood straight up. "Security is coming, we must move." They barely made it out of the control room before Vexari guards stormed in. Ducking through maintenance corridors, they made their way toward the repository. If their plan had worked, the ancient chamber would now be their best refuge. When they arrived, they found Neil already there with Dr. Kim. "Captain Park," the ambassador said with relief. "I should have you court-martialed for this unauthorized mission of yours." "Yes, sir," Hana replied with a small smile. "After we save Earth." That message, Dr. Kim shook his head in wonder. What did it say? According to Professor Han's translation, Taewoo explained, it means something like, "Children of the star paths, remember the voice that made you." The creators wish all their children to share knowledge equally. The ambassador looked around, the vast chamber with its crystal data storage. And all this information was just sitting here locked away because nobody could speak the right language anymore. The Vexari made sure of that. Zikta clicked bitterly. They removed certain sounds from our languages over generations, changed education programs to eliminate key concepts. But they couldn't do that to humans, Neil added. You developed separately on Earth. Hana approached the central crystal, which now glowed steadily. And now we can access what the Shapers left behind. More aliens were entering the repository. Now, not security forces, but curious members of all 7 conquered species, drawn by the broadcast of the ancient language. They moved through the chamber with looks of wonder. "What exactly did your message do to them?" Dr. Kim asked. Professor Han believes the Shaper language works on a deeper level than ordinary speech, Taewoo explained. It triggers responses in brain structures that all Shaper-created species share, including humans, Hana added. But humans retained the ability to use those neural pathways fully, Neil observed. The rest of us lost that connection over time. A commotion at the entrance made them turn. High Executor Raux stormed into the repository, flanked by guards. But when several council members moved to block his path, the Vexari leader hesitated. "This chamber is restricted," Raux declared, "by authority of the Vexari Protectorate." "By what right do you claim sole authority over Shaper knowledge?" challenged a Durrani counselor, its massive amphibian body blocking Raux's path. "I speak for all council species," Raux insisted. "No longer," came a new voice. The Eri counselor floated forward. "The human broadcast has awakened memories many of us had forgotten. The Shapers meant their legacy for all their children. The Vexari have no special claim." As the council members argued, Hana moved quietly to the central crystal. Following Taewoo's whispered instructions, she placed her hands on its surface and spoke more words from Professor Han's translation key. The crystal flared to life. A holographic display filled the chamber, showing star maps, equations, and flowing script in the Shaper language. "What is this?" Dr. Kim asked in awe. "Information about the Shapers," Taewoo said, studying the displays. "Their history, their technology, their purpose in seeding life across the galaxy." The arrival of the data silenced even Ralks. Every being in the chamber stared at the wealth of knowledge suddenly accessible after being locked away for centuries. "This changes everything," Dr. Kim said quietly. Hana nodded, watching as aliens of all species moved through the projections with expressions of wonder. "The quarantine vote won't happen now, not with this discovery." "And Earth's position in the Conquered?" Tae-woo asked. Dr. Kim smiled for the first time in days. "I think our negotiating position just improved dramatically." 1 month after what many were now calling the awakening, the diplomatic landscape had transformed entirely. The massive conference room on the station's upper level was filled with representatives from all 7 conquered species, plus humans. Dr. Jun Kim sat at the main table as an equal with the other council members. Captain Hana Park stood behind him, along with Tae-woo Lee, whose linguistic skills had made him one of the most respected humans in conquered space. "The Joint Research Initiative is proceeding well," reported a Durrani scientist. "It's amphibian," voice translated smoothly. "Humans and Gillet work together most effectively on decoding the mathematical elements of Shaper knowledge." Hana smiled at Zikta, who clicked his mandibles in what she now recognized as an expression of pride. The Gillet had been appointed head of the new multi-species research team studying the repository. "The question of Vexari responsibility remains unaddressed," rumbled a representative from the massive Karate species, the quietest of the 7 founding races. All eyes turned to the Vexari section, where a new face had replaced High Executor Ralks. After the events in the repository, the Vexari leadership had undergone significant changes. Ralex and his closest allies had been removed from power by their own people, many of whom had been deeply moved by hearing the Shaper language again. "The Vexari Directorate acknowledges the errors of past administrations," said Director Nev, the new Vexari leader. Her scales were a lighter color than Ralx's, and she spoke with a humility that would have been unthinkable from her predecessor. "We have opened our historical archives for review by all council species, including records of how the ancestor tongue was systematically removed from educational programs?" asked the Airy counselor pointedly. "Everything," Nev confirmed. "The time for secrets is over." Dr. Kim leaned forward. "Earth appreciates the Vexari's new transparency. We believe looking forward is more productive than dwelling on past wrongs." This diplomatic response earned approving murmurs from around the table. In private, June had been less forgiving, but he understood the delicate balance required to build a new relationship with the Conquered. "Let us review the progress of the translation project," suggested the Airy counselor, gracefully. Shifting the topic, Tae-woo stepped forward. With a gesture, he activated a holographic display in the center of the room. Complex symbols from the Shaper language appeared, alongside translations into all conquered languages and Earth languages. Professor Han and his team have now decoded approximately 70% of the core Shaper language, Tae-woo reported. "With help from linguists of all conquered species, we expect to reach 90% within 6 months." "And the technical applications?" asked Nev. "Already significant," Tae-woo replied. He adjusted the display to show schematics of various technologies. The Shaper's approach to energy generation alone could transform life across all our worlds. Watching from her position behind Dr. Kim, Hana still found it hard to believe how much had changed. Just weeks ago, the Vexari had dismissed humans as primitive newcomers barely worth acknowledging. Now, human linguistic expertise was the foundation of the most important scientific project in the galaxy. After the meeting concluded, Hana found herself walking with Neil through one of the station's garden areas. These spaces, designed to accommodate the biological needs of all conquered species, were now open to everyone, another change from the strict segregation that had existed before. "The humans from your planet's southern continent have particularly strong resonance with the Shaper speech patterns," Neil observed. "The Korean and Australian test subjects show the highest activation. Professor Han thinks it might relate to the tonal qualities of their traditional languages," Hana replied. "Something preserved through cultural transmission even as the actual Shaper words were forgotten. Much like the stories my people kept, Neil's cloud-like body shifted in what Hana now recognized as thoughtful patterns. Imperfect memories, but enough to maintain a connection. They paused at a viewing port that offered a spectacular view of the nearby nebula. 3 Earth ships were now docked at the station, bringing scientists and diplomats eager to help with the Shaper research. "Will you return to Earth soon?" Neil asked. "Not yet. Dr. Kim wants me to remain as security liaison for the New Earth Embassy, here." Hana smiled. "Besides, I've become something of a celebrity among the Concord species. The human who spoke the ancestor tongue. Many still cannot believe that the youngest spacefaring race would be the one to unlock the Shaper's legacy," Neil commented. "Maybe that's why it happened this way," Hana suggested. "The Shapers must have known that knowledge can lead to arrogance over time. Perhaps they deliberately made humans their final project, knowing we would arrive later, with fresher perspectives." Their conversation was interrupted by Taewoo hurrying toward them, his face alight with excitement. "Hana, Neil, you need to come to the repository right now. We've found something incredible." The repository had been transformed in recent weeks. What had once been a sealed, forbidden chamber was now a bustling research center. Scientists from all species worked together, studying the crystal data storage units and the wealth of knowledge they contained. When they arrived, Taewoo led them to the central crystal, where Dr. Kim already waited with Director Nev and several other officials. "What is it?" Hana asked. "Watch," Taewoo said. He spoke a complex phrase in the Shaper language, his pronunciation carefully practiced. The central crystal flared with light. Above it, a holographic image formed, not of star maps or technical schematics, but of a being unlike any Hana had seen before. Tall and slender, with features that somehow seemed to contain elements of all Concord species and humans combined. "A Shaper," whispered Nev, all 4 of her arms raised in what might have been reverence. The hologram began to speak. Though the words were in the Shaper language, Hana found she could understand much of it now after weeks of intensive study. "Children of our design," the Shaper said, its voice melodic and complex. "If you are viewing this message, you have rediscovered your shared heritage. This is as we intended." Taewoo quickly activated translation systems so all could understand the message. "We did not vanish as your legends claim," the Shaper continued. "We simply stepped back to allow you to grow in your own ways. Some of us watch still, from places, between the stars." The chamber had fallen completely silent. Every being present stood transfixed by the ancient message. You were never meant to be alone, isolated from each other. You were designed to be different parts of a greater whole, each species with unique strengths, each culture with unique perspectives. Together you can achieve what none could alone. The Seu hologram shifted, showing images of worlds and stars that no living being had ever seen. The greatest challenges lie ahead. Forces exist in this galaxy that require unity to face. This is why we created you with differences that complement each other. The Shaper's image returned, its expression somehow both alien and familiar. "The humans who have helped you find this message are the last piece we added to our design. Their adaptability balances the stability of older species. Their curiosity counters the caution that comes with long civilization." Hana felt a strange sense of pride mixed with humility. Humans weren't superior to the Concord species. They were the final component in a plan created long before Earth had even cooled from its fiery formation. "Together, you are our legacy. Together, you are more than we could ever be alone." The Shaper raised its hand in what seemed like a gesture of blessing. "We will reveal ourselves fully when all our children have learned to speak together again." The hologram faded, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Dr. Kim was the first to speak. "Well," he said with characteristic understatement, "I believe this changes our agenda for the next council meeting." Laughter, human and alien, broke the tension. Even Director Nev's scales rippled with amusement. As discussions erupted throughout the chamber, Hana found herself standing next to Taewoo, both watching the diverse beings around them with new understanding. "So we're not special after all," she said quietly. "Just the last piece of a very old puzzle." "I'd say that makes us pretty special," Taewoo replied. The Shapers created us to balance the others, to help them remember what they'd forgotten. Hana smiled as she watched humans and aliens working side by side, examining the crystals with shared wonder. And they laughed at us for being primitive. They're not laughing now, Tae-woo said. From across the chamber, Neil floated over to join them, the Ares body glowing with bright, happy colors. The Shapers will return, Neil said, with certainty. Now that we're speaking their language again. All of us together, Hana agreed, listening to the sound of human and alien voices united in the ancient tongue of their shared ancestors. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity had found its true place among the stars, not as conquerors or supplicants, but as the final essential piece of a cosmic family that had been waiting to be whole again.